The waiting place. Best described in Dr. Seuss's book, Oh, the Places You Would Go, talks about people who are waiting for opportunity, motivation, or even inspiration. I've worked with many people who are in a similar situation, waiting for something to happen that is going to spur them into action or help them find direction, only to find it never arrives. And to be honest, I've been there myself. However, today is about you, and if you ever find yourself in that waiting place, it will only be momentary, as you'll have the understanding and the right tool to be able to help you to progress. Welcome to A.I.M. Finding a way to take action is central to any achievement or progress. It would be nice if we could go to sleep and just wake up the next morning with a toned body, or the knowledge of how to construct a motorcycle from scratch. But we both know it doesn't work that way. What you will know is that it's a constant struggle to find the time, the motivation and the energy to be able to do the things that you want to. And that also brings us to the desire paradox, the one that when you want to do something or your desire is at its greatest, you don't have the time. Yet when that time becomes available, you suddenly find that that desire is no longer there. That again keeps us trapped in that dreaded waiting place. We are first going to examine the missing in action approach, the one where we rely on motivation and inspiration to spur us into action, and why this may actually have the opposite effect to what we intend. There are three components that we're going to have a look at today: action, inspiration, motivation. Depending on your previous experience, you might see that there's a particular order in which these take place, and people often think that we need motivation or inspiration to spur us into action. However, there is a false link that's been created within these. Action also doesn't work alone, so it's the trinity of these that allows us to make the progress and gain the momentum that we need. Motivation is the factor that we rely on the most to spur us into action. The challenge with this word is that it's deceptive in terms of what's encapsulated within it, and often doesn't serve us well when we need it the most. If you ever look at this diagram, you'll notice that there are two main components to motivation: intrinsic and extrinsic. That which is driven from within and that which is driven from outside forces. When we look at all of the different components of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, we'll notice that there are numerous elements that need to be taken into account. It's rare that we'll ever go into this level of depth. However, we can consider the combinations that occur to help provide that motivation. For example, in a job you might have the intrinsic motivation of challenge. However, you wouldn't work for free. Therefore, you're also going to be looking at the extrinsic motivation of reward through financial return. If the balance shifts too far in favour of an extrinsic motivator, we might find that it's less fulfilling. Research has shown that intrinsic motivators are the more powerful motivator over a longer period of time. The challenge with motivation is that it's not specific enough. It's a broad word that is used to describe both an emotional and logical state of being, without actually allowing us the understanding or defining which is at play. With this, you could make a statement such as, "I don't feel motivated," which is ambiguous at best, as it doesn't specifically define why you are unmotivated. If you think about your job and you're unmotivated in that, it might be that you don't have that level of challenge. However, there might also be the motivation of the financial return that is still strong, and maybe a stronger motivation is to make sure that you can make the repayments on your house so that you don't lose your place to live. So, can inspiration help us out? Inspiration, or to be inspired, can follow a similar approach to motivation, however is more direct or focused in terms of what we can do with it. When we're inspired, it's like a light bulb, a spotlight that is shone on a particular area that we are going to then focus on. Inspiration can be misunderstood, particularly when we go searching for it. It tends to be more erratic in its timing, and we always need to be prepared for when it may arrive. This then creates two problems when using inspiration. When we're searching for it, we often use methods that delay its arrival. And when it does arrive, we need to be in the right space to be able to properly capture and harness what it brings. I've worked with people wanting to write songs, and they will spend time listening to artists to find inspiration, instead of actively engaging into the creative process to allow inspiration to arrive. It is Pablo Picasso who said, "Inspiration exists, but it has to find you working." And this highlights the order in which we need to engage to be able to provide the outcomes that we desire. In the right time and place, Inspiration is a very effective and useful tool. However, should not be relied on to be the impetus to any project that you are looking to undertake. The key is to get to action, and that's why A.I.M is the ticket to your destination. The concept of action itself is simple. It is a process where we can have a before and after comparison and be able to see what has happened in between. We are doing something, it is tangible, and it allows us to observe what has taken place. If you're a songwriter, it would be the commitment to pick up a guitar, to strum some chords, to write down some lyrics. Instead of thinking about it, you are actually doing it. By removing the wait for motivation or inspiration, you can now explore the options that are available to you. You can take the corresponding action, reflect accordingly, and see the progress that's being made. The biggest hurdle? Getting started. Yet once you take action, you'll find that you begin to create momentum. Whilst there will be times where motivation and inspiration do lead to action, this is not a reliable or consistent way to approach any project. Instead, we'll find ourselves in the dreaded MIA, missing in action. However, when this is reversed, we will find that by promoting action in the first instance, it will allow us to create the opportunities for inspiration and motivation to take place. And once that does, it's a powerful drive that is hard to stop. If you're in the process of action and inspiration strikes, you're in a much better position to be able to harness it and capture it in a meaningful and relevant way. And the same with motivation. Often motivation comes when we can see that we've made progress, that before and after comparison, those steps that occur along the way, those are the things that are going to help build on what it is that you want to do. Again, all comes from putting action first. Models that allow us to visualize a particular process are more effective in being able to engage us into it. Discipline is a word that we probably want to stay away from. However, it can be harnessed as well as part of this. Discipline is the repetitive activity of doing the things that mean the most to us. Therefore, the OAR cycle is an effective way of being able to bring that to the fore. Simply considering what options are available to you, the corresponding action that you will take each time, and reflecting on that to be able to see the progress will have a big benefit to be able to capture inspiration, but more importantly, create the right conditions for motivation to really take hold. Options. These are the actions that are available to you right now. Let's consider our songwriter. If they sat down, they could look at creating some chords. They could decide to write down some lyrics, or they could hum a melody to see what the shape of this might look like. They might also have the option of listening to music from other artists to find that inspiration. But as we described earlier, that just keeps them in the waiting place for longer. For you, it's about finding the right action that is going to promote progress. Consider them carefully, but also think if there's any other options that should be considered that are going to be useful as part of this process. Action. As we described earlier, this is the doing something process. Thinking about our songwriter, they've now picked up a guitar, they're playing through some chords. Now it might be that they don't write the chords for the whole song but focus on one specific area. It is still an action that's taking place, and this is the same for you. Rather than trying to do everything at once, break it down into smaller chunks that are going to be more manageable and allow you to make that progress. Reflect. In its most simple form, it is asking the question of, can I see progress in what I have just done? If the answer is yes, fantastic. What are the next options that become available to you? If not, consider in a little bit more depth of why this might not be and adjust the options accordingly. You can go into more depth with Reflect, but it's designed to be a really short and simple process to complete the cycle and inform what your next steps will be. The reason that the cycle works so well is that it promotes action. And when you're acting, you allow the space for inspiration to strike. But as you're acting, you're also seeing progress, which is a powerful motivator, an intrinsic motivator that you can use to continue to make progress. I recommend starting simple with this, starting small, but you'll find the more you repeat through the cycle, the better you're able to capture motivation and inspiration in completing your aim. And finally, in Dr. Seuss's Oh, the Places You'll Go, the page directly after the waiting place says, no, that is not for you. Somehow you'll find a way to escape. And because you've made it to the end of this video, that way is AIM.